is a work in progress. So, work in progress. Yeah, that's that intro music. Stay with me. Intro music is a work in progress. I'm live. Oh, I've been scratching. Yeah, just giving y'all a minute to get up in this room. We're about to go. Red Hot Chili Peppers. The album is By the Way. Sticking with my little series, I guess, if you want to call it that, of Red Hot Chili Pepper albums featuring John Frusciante. I did Californication last week. Today we're doing By the Way. Just so happens that this is my favorite album. I love it. Alright, we got that going. Live Periscope, live Instagram, live YouTube. Alright, let's do it. Matt Guerra's Music Experience. Number 7, Red Hot Chili Peppers. The album is By the Way. Just so happens that this is my favorite Red Hot Chili Pepper album. I'm going to get into some of the reasons why. I call this one the John Frusciante album. Basically, instead of being that hardcore Red Hot Chili Peppers, super funky, this is more super textured. Like, this is the first time that they went in a different direction with their sound. John Frusciante was doing some highly experimental stuff, and man, I think the end product just came out beautiful. It was just, it has all these warm textures and feelings, and the album means even more to me for other reasons, for personal reasons. I mean, I'm not going to get crazy into that, but I will share how this album was instrumental, no pun intended, instrumental in breaking me out of my, I had a nervous breakdown when I went to school in Florida, and I was having a really rough time, and a bunch of different things happened that ended up with me being at the right place at the right time and hearing some Chili Peppers music that lifted my spirit up just enough to keep me going, and to I mean, it was just crazy. It was just so crazy, and sometimes that's all you need, is a little bit of a push. But besides that, I just consider this a masterpiece of an album. You know, they went in a different direction, and it's because of John Frusciante. I mean, John Frusciante has gone on record as saying that, you know, he made 90% of this album by himself. Bass lines, textures, guitars. And what ended up happening was that left Flea feeling really isolated, and Flea was going to quit the band. You know, in his words, he was absolutely sure that he was going to quit the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He felt like it was a place that he could no longer express himself. And but Anthony ended up talking him out of that. But so here we go. I'll break down a little bit of the facts on this album. And let's see, where did we start? Okay, this album was released on July 9th, 2002. It was recorded November 2001 to May 2002. The studio was Cello Studios and Chateau Marmont in LA. The length is 68 minutes, 46 seconds. The singles from this album were By the Way, then followed by the Zephyr song, and then Can't Stop, and Dosed. And then after that, Universally Speaking. Oh shit, sorry Periscope, I lost you. So this album has two of my favorite, maybe three of my all-time favorite Chili Pepper songs, including Can't Stop. I think it's one of the best guitar riffs in the history of music. I mean, I feel that strongly about it. I remember where I was when I first heard it, and then following that, another favorite song of mine in the top 5 is Dosed. It's just this beautiful masterpiece. It's basically a duet with Anthony and John. And I will say this too about the album. I feel like this was Anthony Kiedis really started singing, and John did a lot of complex vocal harmonies and stuff like that. But Anthony Kiedis' voice was just amazing in this one. And so let's go. By the Way is the 8th studio album by American rock band Red Hot Chili Peppers. The album was released July 9th, 2002 on Warner Brothers Records. It sold more than 286,000 copies in the first week and peaked at number 2 on the Billboard 200. Their next album would peak at number 1. Singles from the album, yeah, I already told you that. So let's see. Background. Following a life-threatening drug addiction that developed after leaving the Chili Peppers in 1992, John Frusciante made a full recovery after a month of drug rehabilitation during the early months of 1998. Shortly thereafter, he was asked to rejoin the Chili Peppers. After several months of writing and recording, Chili Peppers' next album, Californication, was released, which I did last week on My Music Experience. And you can subscribe to that at Matt Guerra's Music Experience on any podcast app and on my YouTube page. Because right now, I'll just tell you what's going on. I'm recording this on Periscope Live, on Instagram Live, and on YouTube. And so what happens is I end up uploading this, and I'm recording the podcast with my I'm recording the audio. So the audio is going to end up being the podcast. The video for YouTube is going to it's going to be on YouTube after this. So that's just a little background, and this is my music experience where I talk about music albums and I break them down and give you my insight on the album. And this is part, like I said, part of my Red Hot Chili Peppers series, if you will. And this is, I did Californication last week, and this is By the Way. Happens to be my favorite album. I also refer to it as the John Frusciante album because he wrote 90% of this album by himself. Vocal melodies, guitar, bass. So here we go, some more facts. Writing and composition. According to the 2010 book, The Red Hot Chili Peppers, An Oral Visual History, Frusciante had originally intended for the album to be very different from how it was eventually completed. Frusciante wanted an album of two different types of songs. Songs that were more, quote, English sounding and melodic, and songs that were more punk rock sounding. He definitely, and they call this, the Chili Peppers call this their English album because it sold the most copies in England. It said it was in like 8 of every 10 households in England. The album's guitar and bass ensemble was primarily dictated by Frusciante, rather than a collaborative effort between him and bassist Flea. Therefore, the record took different direction than any previous Chili Peppers record. Frusciante sought to create an emotional and poignant soundscape throughout the recording. And I will say that it's a soundscape. There's so much cool stuff going on this album. You know, besides the singles, the obvious singles, By the Way, the upbeat, you know, Can't Stop, amazing riffs. There's some tracks in here that are kind of like buried, air quotes, buried in here that are just beautiful. They're just gorgeous, you know. And one of those I consider I Could Die For You, one of my favorite songs that the Chili Peppers made. Warm Tape, buried in there, absolutely beautiful. Venice Queen is the last song on the album. It's amazing. And another thing that's great about this album is it ended up, I mean, there's probably 20 songs that didn't make it on the album that they cut, but they could have very easily made it. And in fact, they came out on different B-sides of singles and stuff. And, you know, they're all out now, but there's probably 20 songs that are just amazing that could have easily went on this record. But the album got a lot of great reviews. And you know, I won't get into that because this is just my reviews. But the release, feeling extremely confident in their album, the Chili Peppers issued the statement, "Greetings from the dimensions of invisible shapes and colors. The music on this record has expanded our space and made us bigger. Thank you for listening and being exactly where and who you are," in a press release. Chad Smith commented that, "By the Way, is very honest, raw, emotional music. It's very dynamic, rich, and lush album. Probably the best collection of Chili Pepper songs we've ever put out." I feel like Chad says that about every album, though. What else? So I'll break down the songs a little bit. First song, By the Way, is most people know that one and have heard it. It's super upbeat, funky, and second song is Universally Speaking. That one, I feel like they could have did without that one on the album. I feel like there were better B-sides that could have been there, but whatever. The third track, This Is the Place, a beautiful song that's buried. Track 4 is Dosed, one of my favorite Chili Pepper songs of all time. I call that basically a duet between John and Anthony. The fifth track is Don't Forget Me, another one of, I mean, just an amazing song. Number 6, the Zephyr song. Number 7, Can't Stop, one of the greatest riffs of all time. Number 8, I Could Die For You. Number 9, Midnight, which is another one that's just buried, if you want to say, but they're just so beautiful. Like all these songs. Kiedis's singing was at its best. John's vocals and harmonies were at their best. The only thing is that John wrote so much of the bass that Flea was going to quit the band. But let's see, number 10, Throw Away Your Television. Bucked up type of song. So great when they do it live. Number 11, Cabron. I feel like this is another song that could have been left off the album, and one of those B-sides could have took its place. But hey, you know. Number 12 is Tear, or Tear, depending on how you read, T-E-A-R. Number 13, On Mercury. Another one they could have did without and put one of those amazing B-side singles on there. Number 14, Minor Thing. This is a funky, cool, upbeat song. Number 15, Warm Tape. Number 16, Venice Queen. And then on the iTunes bonus edition, they included 2 extra songs, Runaway and Bicycle Song. Bicycle Song is still one of my favorite Chili Pepper little B-sides. So, all in all, this album for me, it's a 4.5. But personally, it's my favorite album that they've ever done. Frusciante was really in his stride, and I've read a lot of articles from back then, and he was just basically like a mad scientist in the while recording it. Left other people feeling isolated, but you gotta let John Frusciante do what he does. To me, he's like a Jimi Hendrix. He's ultimately, he can't really be in a band because he's got just too much music in him that he's got to get out, and that's why he probably has 14 solo albums. So yeah, 4.5. So Anthony Kiedis lead vocals, John Frusciante guitar, backing vocals, piano, keyboards, modular synthesizer, bass, Flea, bass, trumpet, harmonica, backing vocals, double bass on Cabron, additional guitar on Dosed. Oh man, Flea, I did not know. Chad Smith, drums, percussion, tambourine. Production, Brian Hewitt, engineer. Mark Mann, arranger. Ethan Mates, recording engineer. Vlado Miller, mastering. Rick Rubin, production and engineering. Jim Scott, mix engineer, recording engineer. Jason Warmer, recording engineer. And the artwork on that was done by John Frusciante's girlfriend at the time. Her father did the art, and his name is Julian Schnabel. And I forget what Frusciante's ex-girlfriend's name is, but it's actually her on the cover of the By the Way album. It's a cool kind of it's got this see-through water-like effect, but there's a hot chick on the front, and that's his daughter. So he was doing some art about his naked daughter, but whatever, it's beautiful. So there it is. By the Way, Red Hot Chili Peppers, one of my favorite albums of all time. John Frusciante masterpiece. And the next album I'm going to do in this series is probably Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic, 1992 masterpiece. John Frusciante was 19, and I'll get into that one. But, that's going to wrap up this episode, Matt Guerra's Music Experience. Subscribe if you want to this podcast on any podcast network, whether it's iTunes, Podcast Addict, whatever you use on your phone to listen to podcasts, you can subscribe to Matt Guerra's Music Experience. Just type those words in. And also, you could just go to Matt Guerra on YouTube, and the video is going to be on there. And thank you guys so much for listening and putting up with my multi-camera experimentation. And yeah, much love. Chili Peppers forever. Oh shit, we lost them, but